So that 1 month warning strike by ASUU is in its third week. So that means for, well, entering 3 weeks now, we've had students in public tertiary institutions in the country not going to class, not doing anything regarding their academics, I mean, officially whatsoever. It's a big conversation. We heard the Minister of Labour and Employment speaking about the negotiation with ASUU, UTAS, IPs, how they're meant to meet today. NANS, that's the Association of Nigerian Students, are meant to block, according to them, federal roads today. In fact, they said they will block the office of the Minister of Education and the Minister of Labour themselves. It's a lot, really, to grapple with. And as you have seen, we'll be having that conversation, that all-important conversation with Professor Emmanuel Osodeke, who is the president of ASUU. He joins us this morning via Zoom from Umuahia. Prof, it's good to have you on the program. So we heard the Minister of Labour saying by Monday they will have gotten back to ASUU regarding their own side of, the negotiation. What can you tell us about that first?
Thank you very much. Although we got a notice from him for a meeting on Tuesday. But as usual, what are they bringing back to us? If you recall, for the past 9 years or so, 13 years, they've been giving all these promises. But once the strike is over, they relapse. If you recall, we met with the Senate President, and we agreed on this issue that we met with the Speaker of the House of Representatives in October. They also agreed on this, the way they are speaking now, the same way they spoke. We met with the NIREC, who also intervened with the President, who set up a 3-man ministerial committee to interact with us. It's still the same issue. So our colleagues are tired of these promises which they don't fulfill. What we want is action. That's what we want. I had to talk about UTAS and what have you. Let me give you this. If Nigeria is proud of home growth solution, why would they accept foreign one without testing? And then the homegrown, the one by ASUU, that has come on at 80% in the test, and you say you should not apply. Why would they accept foreign one without test? And today you are seeing the effect. The report of the General of the I see the effect of not testing that particular solution, IPs. And we are having a homegrown that all of us can work together and quickly apply to solve the problem of IPs. And we are still hearing stories. So that is it. We don't believe in ourselves. Any day this country believes in itself, we will solve all this problem. IPs were brought to Nigeria from nowhere, commercial, spending so much money, and creating so much havoc in the system. It was not tested. So those are the problems we have. Our members are tired of, we're not more interested in MOA, MOU agreement for this issue. We want action. Let them show what they have done.
UTAS conversation, which is a major one, by the way. But let's talk about what has happened since ASUU declared this warning strike. So we had the Minister of Education say that they were looking for ASUU at first, and then there was a meeting. And I'm sure you've had time to weigh and read the body language of government, the way government is approaching this. How would you describe that? Because I think it's important to also help Nigerians see, that roundtable, see what's happening exactly so we know what we expect. How would you describe the negotiations so far?
Exactly the same thing that we've been having in the past, 2009, 2020, 2017. Promises, beautiful promises. But once the strike is over, they are off it. They will not, that's it. That's our problem. If the system is following up with our agreement and advancing the timelines, nobody will be on strike.
But do you read any sense of urgency, Prof? Do you read any sense of urgency on the path of government on this one?
Not at all. Let me give you an example. We were supposed to start strike in November. NIREC, Nigerian Intermediate Council, intervened. And because we have so much respect for them, we shared that strike and said they will intervene. And I must thank them and commend them because they did intervene. Met with the president on the 1st of February, that is a month ago. And the president said, after all this, that the chief of staff, Minister of Labour, and Minister of Education should quickly handle this issue. You read it in the paper, you were also there. It's 1 month. Had they called up for one meeting, that three committee or three had they even called up to any meeting? So if the president gave a directive to solve important issues that is being mediated by NIREC, the head of all the 2 major religions in this country, and they have taken 1 month, 1st February to 28th February, and they have not even called up for one meeting. Does it show sign of seriousness? The president directive.
Well, certainly, the students seem to be showing some sign of seriousness with that mass action which they have promised today. Are you in support of, that action? Students blocking roads, even said they'll block the office of the Minister of Labour and the Minister of Education as well. Is this something that ASUU is supporting?
Well, ASUU as a union, every Nigerian has a right to fight for their right, for what is their right. Let me explain to you. Our Nigerian students be fairly treated. At the university be fairly treated. You saw UNN hosted that was shown on the media recently. With these big men, in quote, allow their dogs to stay in those areas. You have a classroom that should take 50 students, you have 1,000. Should they be happy? And this is a country that all these people who are doing this, except one of you, have all their children outside this country, enjoy spending our money to train them. And here you don't put money into it. Let me give you an example. With what happened in Ukraine, a country that we really don't know much about, that we have almost 5,000 Nigerian students in Ukraine. Do you believe that? As we speak so, according to one of our traditional rulers, very respected, the Nigeria is giving more aids to America on that country that they are giving us, which is correct. Nigeria spend money, train doctors here, because those are not well treated when they start working. They move away to that country to go and treat other people. Nigerian lecturers move all over the world. And none is coming here because we are not teaching our system well. So when we start teaching the system well, remember that education is the key to development, that the only way to move forward is to properly fund our university. We will not have this problem. So, as far as I'm concerned, every Nigerian have a legitimate right to fight for their interests.
Well,
just
Prof,
like ASUU is also fighting for the interests of the Nigerian public universities.
Well, that interest, I guess, is one of those things that concern Nigerian students as well. One of them, the president, actually at some point said this, that at the end of every industrial action, ASUU members are paid their salaries and other entitlements, government officials get paid. It is only Nigerian students, according to him, that get nothing but a waste of everything. The house rent is non-refundable. The age count is irreversible. Is this something that worries ASUU as well?
Let me put it to anybody say ASUU is paid after strike. It's telling a lie. We are paid for the work done. My university where I'm teaching, I started teaching there in 1995, 1994. We have not lost a single session. In all Nigerian university, we have not lost a single session. If for that union go on strike and something happens, it's past. But ASUU, you carry the work forward. I have not gone on leave in the past 20 years. Because my period of leave, I have to put back to ensure that the students and the university do not lose a day. That is it. In a normal semester, it's about 15 weeks. 15 times 2 semesters is 30 weeks. The other 20 weeks, you are supposed to do your research and travel and go on your leave. But we sacrifice them. Because when we come back from strike, we have to put extra work. Cancel our leave to ensure that the student do not miss a year. I want to say categorically, in my university, since 1994 that I started teaching there, we have not missed one single session.
Well,
so it's not correct that ASUU are paid for not doing anything.
No, I think
so
the
it's
point
not correct
here,
now.
Prof,
Nigeria should stop that trajectory. Yes.
Well, the point here for the students is when the strike starts, I mean, recall the longest one we had in recent times for 9 months. I mean, a lot of students had paid for house rent. So, I mean, essentially, they couldn't use the house rent. I'm sure a lot of them had to renew. So that was money wasted. A lot of them, in terms of age now, they're much older. And during that period, they didn't quite achieve anything. They were just staying at home. So the point is, they lose a lot and they don't get that refund in some sense. It just goes and we keep having those strikes. And that's the question, is ASUU also wary of that reality for the students?
Let me answer that question. In the 70s, 80s, 60s, early 90s, were students staying off campus. Are those students staying in government hostel? To pay extra house rent? They are not. The question we're having is that if the students are well taken care of, they will not be talking about house rent because they will be staying in hostels. But today, government have abandoned hostels. So that is it. That's what the students should fight for. If all the students are saying government in the hostels, nobody will ask them to pay extra rent. That is the crisis you have in the system. When I was a student, I never stayed off campus. 70s, 80s, you didn't. Because at that time, the government had interest in education. So this idea of staying house rent and what have you, Nigerian government should build hostels in universities.
What about the age? What about the time lost?
Those who choose not to stay in hostel, hello?
Pardon me, what about the time lost? The fact that they're aging. A lot of them have opportunities that they want to catch up with. But because school is not happening, they can't even access some of those documents or meet up, with that qualification. They lose those opportunities. And these are stories that you hear time and again. So yes, about house rent, that can be sorted. But there are some other things that you can't catch up with or you can't, make up for. I don't think Prof can hear me. We'll try to reconnect with him because these are the main issues that students also raise. And hopefully when we get him back, we'll put in these questions. Also, I recall that the president of NANS, I think they had a meeting in Sokoto where he talked about this mass action, saying that, maybe strike is not the only way that ASUU can achieve these demands. And that's a question I'd love to put through to Prof as well. Can there be an alternative to this aside strike? Because, it looks like we've had so much strikes, but if anything, things have not quite changed. So how about we try something else? Is that a possibility?
Well, we also had this conversation with the president of NANS last week, and I was hoping that we'll be able to listen to a thing or two that he said as well. But, the concern here, one of the things that I remember mentioning, Comrade Ashefo mentioned last week is we also should be at the table. It's our lives being determined here. Perhaps some of those issues that we are raising now, the loss of resources, because those parents will have to still cough out another rent for these students, unless we're saying that the students should go start working. I don't know how, well, maybe that happens, but it's their prerequisite. It's their prerogative. It's their prerogative, not something that we should legalize for them. Absolutely. That's on the one hand. And then that issue of age, it is definitely of serious concern. I remember, Kawadi, in the 80s when ASUU went on strike willy-nilly. It was just like education just wasn't getting, attention. And so it is definitely worrying. For over the years, we've been talking about the same thing. And, the president of ASUU just mentioned now that so many students in Ukraine, about 5,000, 4,000 or 5,000, well, 4,000 according to the front page of one of the papers this morning. And last week we were hearing issues, some figures around 12,000 and all of that. So calculate the number of students in various countries all over the world who prefer to go there to those countries to study. And pay premium, by the way. And pay premium.
Not in Naira.
Even as close to us as Ghana. The economy of the economic education economics economy from Nigeria to Ghana is quite significant. Yeah. So the fact that we are not giving attention to these things only begs one question. Is Nigeria, and I'm not just saying government now, I'm saying, is Nigeria interested in developing human capital? It's a question we need to ask ourselves. We are in a global village. Education, as we know it today, is one way to develop human capital. Is Nigeria, I don't know if Marco wants to weigh in on this before we get the president of ASUU back, if we are able to get him back. Is Nigeria interested in developing human capital? It's a question we need to decide. And then if the answer is yes, how should not be the issue. You raised the issue of whether or not we should be talking about strikes and are there other options? Maybe there are other options, but the question needs to be answered. Is Nigeria interested in developing its human capital for development? And
I think this is a no-brainer, really, because we have talked about how we are cash-strapped as a nation, how we need to raise revenues.
And we export revenue.
Yeah, exactly. So we have those revenues we export in dollars, in pounds, and the other currencies. Now in cities, it will seem, for Ghana, exactly, in rands and all that. Imagine if we took all of that and then used it for our own education sector. That would be a revenue earner, absolutely. But let's hear from the students. That's the president of NANS, speaking about this. And then we'll be back, hopefully reconnect with Professor Sodeke and then continue this conversation.
I've said, and And I will always say that, when two elephants is fighting, the grass is always suffer it. ASUU said they are not shifting grant. What is the outcome of the federal government? The minister came out, he said, before the 1 month warning strike, that hopefully the ASUU will call off. That is what he said. So it doesn't have anything to do with our ultimatum, except if they are going to meet today again, or probably tomorrow or Friday. If we have not seen a concrete decision between the federal government and ASUU, or ASUU addressing a press conference, the way they did a week ago, that they are backing on a strike, and they did. If they fail to do that by Saturday, Sunday, no press release from ASUU that Nigerian students should go back to school, automatically we have no choice to embark on what we have said earlier. So it's sacrosanct that Nigerian students, we are resolute to tell the government that it's high time they take our life serious.
Well, big question you posed there, Ayo, about whether or not Nigeria is interested in human capital development. I'd like you to separate, Nigerians and Nigeria's leaders. On the one hand, you have Nigeria's leaders acknowledging the role that human capital development plays and how it is important. But sometimes it would seem that all of that talk is lip service. Are Nigerians themselves interested in human capital development? You just gave the figures. 4,000 Nigerian students studying in different medical fields in Ukraine. And they don't even speak English there. I mean, you know what trouble it would take for you to learn another language and then get an education in it. If that is not being interested in developing yourself, I don't know what else is. So for a lot of Nigerians, they're certainly interested in human capital development. They're certainly interested in developing themselves. Parents are spending millions of naira in some instances to get their children to get the best education possible that they can afford. Yes, it is true that there are many other places where our children are not in school, where we have 10 million children at the last count out of school, basic education as it were. But those are the people who sometimes, maybe for one reason or another, do not have parents, or whose parents do not exactly understand the value of education, or who are unable to afford it. And that's where we go back to the state. So when we have our leaders talking about human capital development and saying that we need to get the future generation prepared for the future, you have to ask, how much service have we put in there? This education is on a concurrent list. It's for states and the federal government. So this is not a case of just federal government alone. For the governors who say they're interested in human capital development, we should ask them. I mean, maybe we should have a set of parameters. Have you ticked this box? Have you ticked this box? How many children do you have out of school in your state? And this is not just about states in the north. It will surprise you just how many children are out hawking on the streets or are being given out as helps when they ought to be in school. So there are many, many questions around this, and I think that we need to take a second look at this and look at the impact on the future of this country. Are we truly interested? We need to ask that, especially as the 2023 elections come up. If our leaders say they are, then we need to start ticking, we need to start getting parameters. How will you show that indeed when you leave office 4 years after, the future generation would have been at least prepared 8 light years ahead of where they ought to be?
And I think that's very important because this government had those promises. And Professor Sodeke says, well, there isn't that sense of urgency on the side of government, and that's sad to hear. We're totally out of time. We're sorry that we're not able to connect with Professor Sodeke. Hopefully, we'll get him back to let us know what's going on and hear from the students as well, and more importantly, the government, which has been sort of AWOL on this. But